Hey everyone, it's Vanessa and Pia here. From Creative Recruiters. We're talking about how to move overseas as an Australian, like Vanessa has done. So I'm going to ask her some questions, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about coming to Australia as a German in my case. And we're going to share some tips and tricks with you on how to make sure that you can land a job here. So Vanessa, where have you lived overseas? Where did you go?
I have lived in Amsterdam, New York, Oman, and Dubai.
Wow, that's a lot. So where'd you go first?
I first went to Amsterdam, and I think the main thing about going anywhere, wherever it is that you want to go to, is that you can't just go there and say, yeah, okay, let's find a job. You need to know if you can actually work there. So either getting a visa to work there prior, or having the right passport to go and work there. In my case, I was able to get a British passport, so that I could go and live anywhere in Europe at that time, and the UK. So that's the main big tip, is make sure that you can actually go and work there. So with the right visa or with the right passport. Yeah.
And what do you think were the main benefits for you starting or going overseas for your career?
The main benefits for me is that I got to do a lot of traveling with my work, which is why I wanted to go overseas. For an Australian to travel overseas, it costs a lot of money and it takes a lot of time. So I thought, well, instead of it costing a lot of money and taking a lot of time, why don't I actually live there and travel for work, which is what happened. So that is definitely a benefit. Learning a different language, I actually got to learn lots of different languages while I was living overseas. And I think the most important thing is getting to know different cultures. Yeah. I mean, even though I was in Amsterdam, I got to learn about so many different cultures from friends there. And that was the other benefit, friends. You meet friends from all over the world traveling, and it's just fantastic. It really is. And for my career, I think that was sort of like the last thing on the list. The career was also fabulous for my career.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you get to work on anything that you reckon you wouldn't have had the chance to?
Absolutely.
Otherwise?
I mean, I worked on all global TV commercials and was able to do shoots all around the world. You can't do that just staying here in Australia. So
you have a lot of adaptation work. You mentioned you worked with a lot of automotive brands.
Yeah.
And over here, they would often do a lot of adaptation.
The adaptations, whereas when you're working overseas, you're actually working on the work and doing formulating all the work that's actually coming here to be used in Australia or being used in any other countries.
Yeah. So and also there are some industries where I guess London, for example, is still the end all be all. So for example, if you're a packaging designer, they're still always looking over to what's being done in the UK. So having that on your resume, having worked there for a couple of years, they would love the fresh ideas that you bring in when you come back.
And I think that's a really good point, actually. You need to find out where your skill sets are most going to be used the best. You know, graphic designers and art directors, you know, probably in the UK. You could be a film producer. Maybe that's in, you know, Eastern Europe, where they're producing a lot of films. You need to know where your role and your job is best going to be suited. I was able to work in Amsterdam. I didn't have to learn Dutch to work in Amsterdam because it's an international country. And I think that's the same. You don't necessarily need to learn a language to go and live somewhere overseas. Even Berlin, there are advertising agencies there that do everything in English. So it's doing the research and finding out where you're able actually to live and where you're most needed, really.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So there are a few. Also, what I would suggest is once you do decide which city you want to live in or which country, actually do the research into the agencies, into the clients that are there, and which agencies are looking after which clients. Also look into the recruiters. Who are the best recruiters and advertising agency recruiters, if that's where you want to go, in those countries. And link up with them on LinkedIn, contact them. Don't contact them for advice. You should do all the homework and know all of the advice. because we get that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that some more.
That's why we're doing this today.
Yeah.
So don't go to them to ask for advice, but then you can actually start applying to them for roles that they may have. So that they will be on your radar.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, shall I get started?
I just want to say, you know, there are so many benefits of moving overseas and living overseas. I wanted to discuss just a couple of things that you need to think about when you do live overseas. Is that a few of the cons. The cons are that you can't travel home all the time, you know, every year for friends and families, birthdays and weddings and christenings and all that sort of stuff. So you do miss out on a lot of those things. But I think the benefits far outweigh the couple of years or the 5 years or so that you are away. So there are cons, there are pros and cons, and you have to weigh all of them up. You know, can you really live without your mum and dad being and dog being so far away? You need to weigh all of that up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm actually going home for the first time in 2 years in September. I'm very excited, but I'm not going to talk so much about what my journey was because it's very particular because I'm a recruiter. So there's obviously I can't do any remote work. I left my whole network behind, but I'm just going to talk about a few practical things to consider. So I get people emailing me every week. I had a call from California.
And me I asked Pia. Pia knows everything.
I don't, but I try. I had a call from California last week, and so that actually prompted this video. A lot of people come to me with, you know, just this idea of wanting to move to Australia. And I think so the very first tip that I can give is it's really important when you connect with people to articulate where you are in your journey. Are you, you know, is it January and you've just made a resolution to move overseas and you haven't actually done anything? That's fine. But you connecting with a recruiter shouldn't then be your first step. So like Vanessa said, there's a few things to consider, one of them being the visa. I'm absolutely no expert, but a lot of people that we work with come here on a working holiday visa, so that means you're limited to working with one company for 6 months. So that also means that when you are at the point where you're going to apply for jobs, it's an absolute waste of your time to apply for permanent jobs because unless they say they have sponsorship, they're not legally allowed to give you a job that lasts more than 6 months. And so you're better off focusing on the roles where, you know, you've got all the requirements down and you can actually work rather than trying to go for something, you know, that people can't offer you legally. So you've got to consider your visa options, financial situation. Yep. I always say the best thing you can do is to come here and then put everything that you have into your job search. I know that's difficult. You'll have to build up a bit of a financial cushion, but it's definitely easier talking to people, you know, especially when you're working with a recruiter. The roles that you see advertised are usually, you know, sort of to be filled yesterday because companies would have tried to do it themselves or, you know, it's a last minute requirement, maybe they're pitching. So there's not much point in you contacting someone before you're there. It's okay to say hi, but yeah, really the interviews, the time difference, all of that makes it a lot harder. Also consider the time of the year that you want to go. So I've talked to a lot of people that think, oh, it'd be nice to have Christmas in Australia, wouldn't it? And sure, it would be, but it's actually one of the worst times to go to come just before Christmas because in January and February, the market tends to be a bit slower. So consider that as well. Consider, is there any skills that you have that are, you know, that you might need to upskill? So maybe you're a copywriter in your home country, but it's not English as a first language. You're gonna have difficulties finding work. That's unfortunately just often the way it is. So maybe if you're already doing copy for websites or blogs, or maybe before you leave, you do a crash course in social media so that you have that other leg to stand on and you're not fully reliant on working as a copywriter, for example. Another thing is, you know, how can you take a little bit of the pressure off of needing to find a job straight away? One was the building up a little bit of a savings. Yeah. The other thing is, if you're a freelancer in your home country, maybe see who's willing to work with you remotely. just so you've got a couple of hours filled. You know, you're not going to end up on the streets. So I think that's a lot of things that you can do in preparation before even going. And then also I would say when you're here, obviously get in touch with the recruiters, get in touch, network, and that starts before you come. I actually, in Germany, went to a job interview just before I came and ended up telling them that I was going to move, and she was like, oh, I've got 3 contacts there. One of them runs an agency in Sydney, and I didn't get a job through those contacts, but it's always good knowing people and they know people.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell everyone you know that you're about to move, which might make it a little bit easier.
I think that's a really good point, going both ways, either coming to Australia or going overseas. As I said, you know, connect with the recruiters. Watch what the agencies are doing if you do want to go into agencies. Get on their newsletters. Find out what's happening. You know, maybe an agency that you would love to work for, you know, after you've been following them for a couple of months has a huge big win. And then you can say, actually, I'm going to be there. Here's my CV. I would make a perfect candidate for it. You know, don't expect anybody else to do the work for you, because it's not. Nobody else is going to help you. You need to get in there. You need to do the work. You need to do the research, and you need to find the work. It's not going to come on your lap. It's hard work.
It is. It can be a little soul crushing at times when you're looking for work.
I remember when I first left, everybody said, you are so lucky to go overseas. It's like, it's not luck. It's a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work.
Definitely.
And a lot of things that we have to you know, sacrifice in order to do that. So it's not luck at all.
And talking about hard work and networking, it's not only contacting people, it's going to meetups, it's you know, just even going to, you know, just say yes to everything for a month when you're here and see what happens. You know, your housemate or someone in your hostel might know someone, and they could end up knowing someone that gives you a job. Don't be precious as well. I know a lot of people who, you know, they've got big plans to come over here, but they only want to work on big brands straight away. You know, maybe you are doing a rebrand for a cafe. Maybe that's your first job. But if that gets you paid and that, you know, adds some Australian experience.
And gets you meeting other people. I mean, you know, it's networking. It's meeting other people.
Yeah. And in terms of recruitment agencies, I would recommend, if you're a freelancer, go out to different agencies. It sounds counterintuitive, but actually, because we cannot guarantee, you know, continuous work for you. So go to different agencies, but build good relationships with the recruiters and be open and upfront. Keep a list of where you have been presented. Lauren's did a really good video on this just the other week. You can search for floating on our YouTube channel, or it should be on our LinkedIn and Facebook as well. So talk to a lot of people there. In terms of salaries, we have a really good salary guide that you can download from our website to give you an idea. Freelance rates obviously a bit harder to figure out. Always depends on length of project, you know, Sydney, Melbourne. But again, talk to other freelancers, see what they're making. Talk to a lot of people just in the market, and make sure that you know, you're not being underpaid, but you're also not setting it so high that you're not getting any jobs. It's a lot of things to talk about. Very quickly, LinkedIn. So practical tips to apply. Humi and I did a great video just the other week as well. 2 things I want to say in this video. Change your location. So if you're still, in my case, in Germany, and I was to apply for a job with Vanessa, she would not see that job application. So change your location to, in that case, Melbourne. Or also, when you're doing your LinkedIn or your resume, make sure that you explain your experience. So, for example, I work for Jungformat, which is a really successful agency in Germany, but not everyone here knows about it. So I just put a little sentence, worked for Germany's most successful independent agency, 1,000 employees, and then gives people an idea of what my experience was. Couple of other things.
Actually, I think that's a really good point, coming both ways, either Australians going over there or you coming here. Don't assume that everybody knows all the big brands or the big companies on both sides of the fence. You could be in a conversation saying, oh, that person and this person and that great brand and that great brand, you may not actually know it. So you need to judge in the conversations or in the written skills who those companies are, because people may not know them either way.
Yeah.
You know, Australians going overseas or people coming from overseas here, we may not know them. You need to explain that.
Exactly. And one last thing that my colleague said just before we went and did our Facebook Live is, when you do contact people, make sure it's personal. You wouldn't want to receive a mass email from us. Same, we wouldn't want to receive one where we can
sir or dear ma'am.
Yeah, or one where we can see it's been CC'd, not even DCC'd, but CC'd to 100 other people. Or in our case, oftentimes people contact all of us. But we actually, if you hop on our website, you see that we all specialize in different areas. So
research.
Find out who the right person is to contact, because if you're emailing me, I'll definitely get back to you. If you're emailing everyone at Creative Recruiters, we might all think, oh, Vanessa's gonna reply to that one.
Pia's gonna do it, or somebody else is gonna do it. Yeah.
So just little things like that. Yeah. We've been talking for a while. We can see a couple of people watching online, but we don't have any comments. But if you have any questions at all, hit us up on. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. You can send us an email.
Facebook. You can ask the questions after we're finished here. We're always checking that.
Yeah.
And then you have our website, and you can go in, again, research. Find out who you want to ask the questions to. If it's going to Australia, then it would be Pia, and if it's leaving Australia, then ask me the questions.
Yeah.
And we're quite happy to do that for you.
Yeah, we know it's hard, so we're always here to help in any way that we can. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and we might.
If you liked it, if it was interesting, leave a comment, or just give us a little thumbs up or something. You know.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to have lunch now.
Yeah.
And talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.